Hey everyone, Erica Becker here, your host of the GC360 podcast. I am here today. I'm super excited about this podcast. We always talk about and interview the most interesting people in Garden City. And today I have a beautiful couple who's going to tell us all about their interesting story, and I'm really excited to hear it. So here with me, I have Nandini and Vishnu, and they are engaged to be married. Do you guys have a date set?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. Well, thank you for coming on the show. I'm really excited to talk to you guys today.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Yes. So earlier off air, we were getting into talking about how you guys met and kind of your storybook romance. And I know that Garden City played a big part in how you guys met and your love story. So I know that a lot of our viewers are Garden City natives, so they would love to hear it. So please tell me about start by telling me about your first date that you were telling me about before.
Absolutely. But before the first date and before we actually get into the whole sequence of getting to know one another, this wasn't actually supposed to happen. I lived in California. I lived in California for a decade. And the only reason why I was, coming out to New York was because my father was having a surgery and I wanted to be by his side to support him and, whatever he needs, just be a really good son and aid him in that way. And so I took a trip out to New York, and I was actually working remotely at that time because COVID, and I work in tech, and, it's good to still do your job, but at the same time attend to other activities that you need to take care of. So at that time, I flew into New York, and I was using this app called Bumble, a dating app.
Okay, I've heard of it.
I had no intention of matching with anyone in New York, but I'm like, you know what? As someone who is in tech and primarily in program management, it's always about optimization equation. So I was like, let me queue up some dates for a week from now. So when I'm back, I can line this up and see, just optimization. You want to get like the right dates in order.
Of how technical he thinks about it.
Yeah. I think of things in a very logical manner.
Yeah.
So I opened this Bumble app, didn't know that it rerouted to New York, had no intention of matching with anyone in New York. And Nandini pops up, and oh wow, yoga instructor, really diverse background, really interesting personality, very beautiful. So I'm like, all right, cool. Let me like that or whatever it is, right? But with Bumble, it's the female that has to connect with you.
Right,
that's how that
the
app
thing
works.
About it, right?
So then
we match.
We match, and she kicks off the conversation. It's a fire conversation. There's like a lot of banter, and I like a lot of wordplay, and I like certain innuendos and these things. And I think that when you have someone who can kind of challenge you in that regard, it just makes that relationship, the chemistry is unparalleled. Mm-hmm. So, and things were escalating really quickly. I'm like, all right, let's go on a first date. And it's like 3 days in. So we queue up this first date. And, you have so much confidence when you're behind the screen of your phone and all that.
Definitely.
But it's a day and night difference when it's actually in person. Mm-hmm. So she's like, we're trying to coordinate where we want to have this date.
So I told you that I was, living in Garden City with my parents, and, at night, typically I have my yoga classes, and I'm also a yoga instructor. So I told him that, since you're working California hours, I wouldn't want to go somewhere I wanted to meet him right away, because our conversation was just so great. So I said, why don't you come to Garden City, and I can drive over after my yoga class, and, we can get a bite or a drink.
Yeah.
So I told him to meet me at Novita right here on Franklin Avenue.
Yes.
And, so we arrived there. He's waiting at the bar. He says he's waiting there for 10 minutes now. I said, I don't see you at the bar. I looked all over the restaurant. Where could you be?
Yeah.
And then I said, you know what? Maybe he went next door to Water Zooey. It's like connected. Mm-hmm. It's the same owners. It looks similar, so it's probably there.
Yeah.
And then I was right. He was there. So I walked in, and we met. And it was very awkward at first, but then we just started to really hit it off. We took a walk down 7th Street. We went to the Garden City Hotel patio.
Ooh, so nice.
So nice.
Yeah.
And that's really where our romance started to blossom.
Okay. So I think it's funny about the Water Zooey Novita thing, because I actually I walked into Novita when I thought I was walking into Water Zooey before.
Yeah.
So when it's new, I had never it was whenever I'd first come around the area. If you don't know, like,
Yeah.
he's from California,
Yeah.
so it's an easy mistake.
So for me, it was actually, it was interesting because the thing is, when you go into these dates, sometimes you kind of like game plan in your head. As a man, it's like, I want to go in there prepared, want to execute on this plan, need to make sure that we get these points across and whatever. So I had a little bit of a game plan in my head. I'm like, all right, okay, cool, Novita, Novita, Novita. So I'm like walking, pacing, looking, see this entrance. And it carves into Water Zooey, and I'm sitting there thinking it's Novita, at the bar and whatnot. And, every minute feels like an hour at that point, because it's like, oh my God, like she said she would be here at this time. Why isn't she here at this time?
Yeah.
So, we're texting back and forth, the anticipation, the build-up, the anxiety, the butterflies,
Go to
everything
worst case
starts
scenario.
to go into overdrive. And so then, we eventually... sort this out, and she's like, oh, you're probably, as she mentioned, you're probably in Water Zooey. Let me make my way over. So she starts making her way over, and it's at that moment where, like, every game plan that you've planned, you just drop it. Like, you just blank out, where it's like, oh, I see her, she sees me, and then you get into robotic mode. Like, you get into this mode where you didn't necessarily plan for, and no matter what I would say to her, it wouldn't really land. Because it's like, I had this thing where it's like, you know what, let's try this psychological game called 36 Questions to fall in love, because, this is how you can really get to know somebody.
Yeah.
And she was like, no. And I'm like, oh my God, I have nothing. I'm like, bartender, get me another drink, another round.
I don't have 36 questions, I got nothing.
So then I'm like, right now I'm like at negative like 300. If you're looking at a point scale, like I've actually started with a deficit.
Oh no.
So like I'm like, all right, there's no way I'm gonna salvage this whole date. Let's look for the best way to exit and whatnot. I'm like, all right, might as well get a round of drinks out of this, right? So like we're there, and so kind of like loosening up the nerves, and this is where it kind of segues into what Nandini was saying, where it's like, you at some point you just have to like breathe and relax. And once we stepped outside of Water Zooey, we started to take a nice little stroll, and we eventually made our way to 7th Street and just kind of soaking in the city, because this is the first time I was actually experiencing Garden City.
Yeah.
And, I was stunned with how beautiful the city is, how it's laid out, how clean it is. She's lived here for most of her life. And so I was falling in love with the city, and I was, starting to fall in love with having small conversation and trying to get to know her at a deeper level, because it's when you don't make plans, and when you actually authentically go into a date and you just kind of go with the flow or go with that moment, you can really get to know someone. So
It's hard to do that, right?
It is challenging.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but as soon as we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about that being authentic on a first date. So we're going to take a quick commercial break here, but we will be right back after these messages.
My father never stops moving, but after he had a brain aneurysm, he had a difficult time getting back to his normal routine. That's when I called Alliance Services. They paired him with Rosa. She developed a custom home care plan that helped him with his recovery.
Rosa helped me gain my independence back.
Alliance Services, helping older adults continue to live well and independent.
Hey everyone, we are back on the GC360 podcast. If you're just now tuning in, I was discussing here with Vishnu and Nandini kind of the butterflies of a first date. You just finished telling me about how your guys was going. And Vishnu, I think it's so funny that you had this plan to ask the 36 questions, and then she shuts it down, and you're thinking, okay, shoot, now what do I do? I think that most people feel that way on a first date, right?
And the hardest part is that, men are expected to lead to a certain degree, right? So it's, would she like that? Would she not like that? If I say this, like, do I have an out? Like, so you're always like, when I was in high school, I used to, play a little bit of chess. So it's always about thinking a couple moves ahead and how you can kind of like get out of a difficult or challenging situation. So I was like overthinking when I first stepped in. But when I realized that, you can kind of take a step back and just be you and see how that goes. And, by virtue of doing that, it's actually discovering the right partner. It's that someone can kind of take your good with the bad and kind of appreciate all of that. So what did you think of?
I want to know when he said, So whenever you asked about the 36, how did he bring up that topic, like that he wanted to do that?
So we were just having, drinks, and he said, so tell me about yourself. Would you want to play 36 questions? It's a New York Times based game in the dating section. And I was like, no, like I have no mood to play that right now.
Why did you not want to play?
I don't know, just like too much energy and effort. I kind of wanted to just keep it cool and casual and just get to know each other, in a very natural way.
Yeah, that's so funny. And then what did he do after you said no? What do you remember about that moment?
I don't remember. What did you say?
I probably like put my head down for like 2 seconds, and I went into like introspection, kind of like, damn.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he was just really quiet, and I said, you know what, why don't we go walk on 7th Street? It's a beautiful night. It's July. It's the summer.
Nice. Yeah.
I'll show you around, town where I grew up, and we can go to the Garden City Hotel. They have a beautiful patio bar. So we went there, and things started to really blossom at that point because we were relaxed. We were sitting. We were able to have another cocktail, a few bites, and we started to get to know each other and each other's backgrounds, and his background from California, and being in 2 different places, we had a lot to talk about.
I'm sure.
Yes.
And so how did it, so were both of you actively looking to be dating whenever you guys met? I mean, you were on the app, so obviously you're open to it.
Yeah.
So you both were like actively looking.
Yeah, we're actively looking, but we're both very picky and selective folks in the sense that, one, I think we like this level of challenge. I don't know how to make people visualize that, but it's kind of like
something to keep us on our toes.
Yeah, something to constantly keep us on our toes.
Yeah.
And so that element of challenge, that element of surprise, all of that is a special dynamic in this relationship. There's also the spontaneity.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of like feel that out after a couple of dates.
Definitely.
And it was actually one of the reasons why, like, I kept flying back and forth from California, like 3 or 4 times. And I would stay, like, 3 or 4 weeks, maybe a little over a month at a time.
Okay.
And, I'd work remotely, I'd be here and all that. And, I think it was after my 3rd visit where it's like, all right, now it's beginning to, like, kick in that it might be worthwhile to take a transfer from California to New York and take life as it comes. Be spontaneous. Like the thing is that you have one life to live, and you don't need to do everything by the book. I think that there's the element of surprise or being spontaneous. I think it opens up so many more doors, and so
Definitely
I
having an open mind.
had an open mind, and I sold my house there, and I drove 3,000 miles here, cross country, learned a lot. I had a buddy of mine who was interested in seeing the country as well, and stopping in all these different states, and if anyone ever wants to do that, it's a great thing to explore with a group of friends and learn about all these other states, and that's a topic for another day. But drove cross country, made my way here, and then we started like figuring things out as they come and just kind of making it up as we go.
Yeah, wow. So luckily you were able to work remote, so you could come over for these visits. Were you coming for these visits to go on dates with Nandini?
It partially. I mean, the one part of it is, and this is where I give her a lot of credit in terms of like her creativity. My 2nd visit back, she knows that I would work California hours, and she would always want to take care of me. She'd always want to nurture me in some way. So she'd make this like 5-course like gourmet meal and all of that. And I'm like, now you got the food. Now it's
you have no, it's like it's over.
It's over. It's game over. Like when a woman makes like fresh home cooked meals for you and all that, it's like checkmate right there.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
She got you. So so it felt good. Like the fact that it felt right. It felt natural. It felt like we don't really need to try. At some point, things just naturally progress.
Yeah.
And you're in your elements when you can just say the most craziest things. Like there'd be days where, like we would walk around and make animal noises. It's so stupid and it's weird, but it's like we could do that. You can do that because you're so confident and you're just so like in your nature, and it kind of ties into our yoga and like helping people express themselves and all that. So
definitely, I was gonna say, so you do yoga classes. So how's that been going? You're doing it in Garden City?
Yeah, so I teach at Export Fitness in Garden City. I have a bunch of private clients that I've met over the years, also in Garden City. I teach adults yoga, kids yoga, special needs,
cool.
Children and adults on the spectrum. I've also done,
Wow.
Yoga for seniors, like in, chair yoga and cardiac rehabs and things like that, senior
Awesome.
centers. So I really enjoy doing that as my bread
Yeah.
and butter. It's also just a passion of mine. I've loved fitness ever since I was a little girl, and everything from aerial silk dancing to lyra dancing on those, on the hoops.
Oh, fun.
Circus type stuff. I grew up doing gymnastics. So
Yeah.
being that I've had that background, this is just so much fun for me.
That's great. I have a dance background, so what's the area? I've always wanted to try that, the
Yeah.
aerial silk. How is that?
It requires a lot of core strength.
Yeah, it looks like it.
You have to be able to lift your body up into the sky,
Mm-hmm.
but once you do it a few times, you kind of get used to it and you build the strength to be able to do it.
That looks really fun. And it's like so beautiful looking too
It
to
is
watch
so beautiful,
people.
and there's so many cool poses, and it's just like very whimsical. So I think it's just like a great activity to try.
Yeah. So I know that speaking of spontaneity, you guys travel a lot.
Quite a bit.
And you go to cool places. Whenever you travel, how do you continue the yoga do you go to classes or do you practice yourself?
So we typically travel to a lot of, warm, beachy type destinations. So there's always a beach or outdoor space. During the day, I will usually attend a yoga class at the resort or just, go on the beach and practice myself in the
Yeah.
morning. So there's always a place to do my personal practice.
That's why I like yoga and Pilates so much, is because you can do it anywhere.
Yeah,
Like you don't have to
exactly.
have anything.
You don't need any equipment. You
Yeah.
can just go wherever. Yoga is everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So for traveling, what's the most recent place that you have been?
Most recently,
We
we
just
went
got
to
back
the
in the Bahamas,
Bahamas
right?
2
Yeah.
weeks ago. So we
2
went,
weeks ago?
Yeah, we went to Atlantis. That's our favorite place there. We went
Okay.
there a few times this year. It was a little bit cold this time, but we still enjoyed it because there's like a yoga retreat there.
Oh, nice.
They have, vegetarian home cooked meals, and they have meditation programs, different workshops on different yogic topics, so like healthy eating or natural medicine.
Yeah, so for
Yeah.
us, it's like sometimes there are things that we feel bog us down and like mentally and all that. One, there's our work and kind of being on top of it, and there's all these other activities that we have to consistently execute. So
Yeah.
a travel or going to a destination is a little bit of a getaway. And so this time we went to the Bahamas. We went to this little meditation and yoga retreat over there. It's great because I think that sometimes we have to prioritize our mind and prioritize our mental well-being. So we went there, ate really good vegetarian food at this ashram, and over there the beauty of this ashram is that when you eat your food you have to wash your own dishes, and that
Cool.
teaches you that teaches you a lot, because it's like that we have to clean up after ourselves, and it teaches you to be humble and respect one another and all that.
Right.
So definitely each one of the travel destinations we go to, we learn some sort of a lesson there, and it's always nice to also get away from the winter here. The New York winters, like coming from California, having lived there for a decade and being spoiled
I was gonna
with
say.
that weather, I'm like, oh my God, let's go to the Bahamas now.
Yeah,
Let's-
definitely.
It works in my favor because I got a vacation out of it.
Yeah, exactly. So out of all the places you've been, first of all, also, when was your guys' first date?
July 27th, I think.
Yeah, July 27th.
2021.
2021.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So since then, how many places have you gone to together?
Oh,
Oh my
a
goodness.
lot.
We've been to,
You wanna start the list?
taken like 8 or 9 vacations
Wow.
over the year. Of course, we've been to Montauk many times, and then we've been to the Bahamas 3 times, Palm Beach, Nantucket, Spain, Italy, Greece,
Wow.
Dubai, Morocco, France.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You guys are busy.
Oh yeah, there's.
Vegas.
It's only been how long have you been together now? Like a year and a half?
A year and a half.
Yeah.
It's a lot of traveling
A lot
for a
of
year and a half.
travel,
That's
yeah.
awesome. What was your favorite place, would you say?
I
you had
would
to
say, I actually happen to like Palm Beach a lot.
Yeah, I think Palm
that was
Beach
my
is
favorite.
a great getaway. It's basically Garden City, in a tropical like island.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
Cool.
clean, it's neat, the decor, just
The dining is
the
great.
people,
Yes.
the dining, the different types of activities. It's a garden city of the South. It's a warmer garden city, just a classy and elegant town. And you know, the thing is, for us, it's also the fact that we stayed at a really nice hotel over there, and they provided car service and all that. So it just felt like incredible luxury for a week.
Being
and just,
treated
yeah.
well.
So I happen to like that.
Yeah. Well, of course. So with all the travels you've done, you have to have some kind of crazy travel story, whether it's on the plane or something that has happened, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So does anything stick out that you could tell me about?
Yeah, I think I'll tell this one.
Sure, absolutely,
So
go for it.
we were in Barcelona, and we took this walk.
He already knows.
Yeah. We took this walking tour, and the walking tour, it took us on a bus, and we were supposed to go back into that bus at a certain time, and it would take us back to the airport to catch our flight.
Okay.
And after Barcelona, I told him that I really wanted to see Morocco because it's only a 2-hour flight from there. So I said, why not? We can go to Morocco and then go home. So we went to, we were on this walking tour in Barcelona, and of course, foreign place, and I'm nervous because, just like a different place, and we're far away from home. So.
Yeah.
We're walking, we're with our guide, she's showing us like these beautiful cathedrals and everything like that. And Vishnu, he's always hungry. He says, oh, I'm hungry. And, they haven't stopped for food yet. So there's a Five Guys there. Can I go get some food? I'm like, listen, the tour guide is like stopping very quickly at each of the spots. So by the time you get your food and it's ordered and everything, they're going to leave.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to navigate myself. I don't have service. I don't have the international plan. I'm not paying for that.
Yeah.
Because we were away for like 3 weeks at that point. So I said, don't get the food.
Yeah.
But of course, he never listens to me. So he goes into Five Guys, orders, a few sandwiches, and we're waiting. And by the time we finish, I'm keeping an eye on the tour guide, but she's already left.
Of
And
course.
I can't find it because, it's a rainy day and it's very crowded.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a tourist area. So she left, and we're running to try to find her all throughout, Barcelona.
Oh my gosh.
And I am just so nervous at this point because if that bus leaves, our stuff is in there, our luggage is in
I
there.
was going to say.
We missed our flight to Morocco, like it's game over.
Yeah.
But thankfully, Vishnu is very smart and, he has a photogenic memory. So he remembers the way that we got to the bus. So he said, you know what, they've got to be at the bus because we looked all throughout the area. Where could they go in like 5-10 minutes?
Yeah.
So we got to the bus, and finally, we find them, and everything is okay. But it was really hit or miss. If we missed that bus, then
That would have been a bad
huge
story.
problem. And all
Yeah.
my stuff was in there, and we would have missed our flight. So I'm so glad that we found that bus.
I feel like when I hear stories about people doing tours and things like that, outside of like internationally, outside of the US, I feel like if you were doing a tour in the US, they would like check and make sure everyone's here. Like, do they just like?
No, they don't
They're
care.
kind of like,
No.
listen, you're an adult.
It was like
Yeah.
it was like raining it was raining that day, so everybody was wearing a poncho,
Yeah, the
and it was all
same
blue,
plastic
and so
Oh
you couldn't really
God.
identify folks. They'll give
Everyone
you a
was the
sticker
same.
so that you can be with your group or you can identify your
But
group.
there's so many.
But
tour
there
groups
there
there,
are
and
like
they
so
all
many
have
tour groups doing the
stickers.
same exact thing.
Yeah.
And so it's like, all right, cool, just keep up, make sure you spot the tour lady, and if you don't, figure it out.
Yeah.
They're more lax about that internationally. Over here, I think obviously they have like a checklist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's
it's
liability
systematic.
factors. There's all these other things that you have to take into consideration. But I was actually really surprised how much of a leash they gave us. And in my defense, Five Guys has those like free peanuts. So I was like, oh my god, like we haven't eaten, and there's free peanuts here.
Yeah.
And I can see the anxiety like start to build up with her, and I can.
But you're
you
getting
can-
hangry.
I'm getting hangry,
Yeah.
and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go get 2 sandwiches there. I'm gonna go get some peanuts over here, and I was just like, they're probably still like at the same site because the lady was moving at a slow pace. I was like, we'll figure it out. She was like, and she was getting mad.
Yeah.
But the once we get out there, I'm like, oh crap, like like what
She
did we
was
do?
right.
She was right. She was right, but you never want to admit that. So you're like,
Of course.
like, and the thing is, you have to play it off like cool as a cucumber. Like, yeah, I got this. Don't worry, don't worry. Like, like indirectly panicking, but like, yeah, don't worry about it. We got this. We got this. Oh, that was fun.
Well, it's always a good sign when you can go through something stressful with somebody and you still like come back around and you can handle it together, you know?
Right.
What do you guys think is maybe one of your biggest challenges as a couple? Like what's a good way to get through challenges and stay together? Obviously you guys are, you're engaged, so you're planning it for the long haul.
I think communication, like we've always been very open with each other. I've always told him everything very frankly. So even from the get-go, when he first matched on Bumble, I told him, I know you're from California, but my whole family is here in New York. My whole life is here. My business is here. I don't see myself leaving New York anytime soon. So we can go on a date, but it might just be that. It might just be that. Or, if you want to pursue this relationship, then I'm not going anywhere. So you're going to have to figure that out.
Think about that,
right? So,
and 36 questions, you're like, no, I don't want to play that.
Yeah, I think, for lack of better words, I'm very blunt. So he always knows what I'm thinking because I will always tell him. And that allows us to have open communication where we're comfortable with each other to just say what we're feeling and work through our differences. And there's always differences in every relationship, but I think that when you're able to be honest, there's a level of trust.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I also think that there's a level of compromise in any relationship, really. There's compromise. There's also being assertive. There are certain things you don't want to compromise, but you also want your counterpart to be able to see it in your shoes and kind of experience some of what you've experienced. So in terms of the activities that we take on, right? Sometimes she's very spontaneous and she signs me up for activities that I don't know if I want to do or not, like goat yoga, and I'm like, do I have to? But then I go and I'm like, wow, that was so much fun. I want to do it again. That's great. Or like we'd go to like a soap making class or making tie-dye shirts or whatever, and it's like it's interesting because it's like you like your mind, it works in a certain way, and I'm like, I've always been exposed to this, or I'm a logical guy, and these are the types of activities I engage in and whatnot. And
I think I bring the creativity out.
So she brings that creative side, like, let's go make soap, and I'm like, I'm gonna hate this, but then I go there, I'm like, wow, like, this is
so fun.
This is great, and this is like great moisture for my skin. I don't know, men can have really good soap. Like, this is great soap. We can pamper ourselves. So that was nice, and and it's also a life skill to have. Like, I came back from that class, I'm like, damn, I want to make my own soap now. I just feel it's like a day and night difference from making your own soap versus buying it commercially, because it's like the product, what goes in there, and so
it's better for you.
Yeah, it's better for you, and I would not have I would not have learned that if I didn't get that exposure, or if I didn't try something new. So I think it's stepping out of your comfort zone. It's in some ways being able to see things from the other person's perspective. There are things that I do which I'm assertive about, which she doesn't appreciate or she doesn't like, but then once she kind of sees it from my perspective and experiences it, then she's like, oh yeah, you're right about that. Yeah, you might be adamant, and you might be in some ways very fixated with what you believe to be true. But being able to see things from another light, it really does expand your horizons. And so
I agree with that. That's good. And open communication is probably, I think, it's great that you guys have that, and it's good that you both stick to yourselves, and I think it's good that you're blunt, because I think that's where a lot of couples have problems, is when, and I think a lot of times it's typically the female expects the partner to know what they're thinking, or they're like, say, oh no, it's fine, when it's not. But it doesn't sound like you're like that. You're like, it's not fine.
I'll tell him, and I think that at first, it kind of bothered him a little bit because he felt like, oh, you have these accusations and stuff like that. But now I think that he likes it, because he said, you know what, this makes my job easier.
Totally.
As a partner, because I know what you want, I know what you don't want. And I can kind of act accordingly.
So I think that's some good couple relationship advice. Now, real quick before we sign off, I have to know, how did the proposal go?
Ooh, do you want to share this one?
Yeah, so on our proposal, I kind of knew that it was coming because, we had gone ring shopping, and he said that it's going to happen around this time. And he said, you know what, he came to my house, he rang my doorbell, and my parents opened the door. He's like, where's Deanie? I want to take her on a journey down memory lane. So he picked me up. I was dressed up. I kind of had a feeling, so I dressed up. And he said, where did our first date occur? And I said, Waterzooey.
Yeah.
He's like, we're going to go there today and have a drink. I'm like, okay. So we go there, we have a drink, and then, he's like, you know what? I want to relive our first date. Let's go. And it was really cold. It was January, and it was like 2 degrees. It was probably the coldest day. So,
oh my gosh.
And I'm wearing heels, so I was just like, no. He's like, I want to walk down to the Garden City Hotel where we had our part of our first date. So we walk down there. I'm already like freezing frostbite, and we go and we see both our families, and we see photographer, and there's like a huge written marry me sign and flowers, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like
wow.
This is exactly what I envisioned.
How did you feel when
I
you saw
felt incredible. Like it just felt so surreal, and it was exactly what I wanted, and he really nailed it. So it was a very special moment.
I know how much Garden City means to her. She's grown up here for most of her life, and this is just an elegant, beautiful, just a classy town. And you see a lot of great, sophisticated folks, and I know that she likes that Garden City vibe, and I wanted to recreate our first date, but make it a little bit more happier because this time we have the butterflies out of the way.
Yeah.
And so wanted to infuse many of those elements, kind of get both our families together. It's always good to kind of get the families kind of, involved in that regard. So it was a nice way to bring everyone together to, commemorate our journey and the next step we're about to take in our life, the next milestone.
Very creative of you. I'm proud of that, right?
I am.
Cool. Well, thank you both for sharing your story. I love talking about dating, relationships, your travels. It's so interesting to hear about how you guys are here today, and it'll be exciting to see how things progress. You'll have to let me know once you set a date. We'll have you guys back on, and we'll see how things are going. Is there any place that if people want to follow you or anything like that, where can they find you?
Sure. They can follow me on my Instagram at Yoga with Deanie. I post my yoga classes there, our travels, and anything else. If you are looking to reach out, you can reach out on my Instagram.
Yeah, she has really beautiful pictures on her Instagram, so you should look at it. Any place for you?
For me, I'm not big on social media. I'm more like the low-key guy who kind of does my thing. That's more her turf.
That's deep.
Cool.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show and you guys being so open and talking about everything with me. So to everyone out there, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the GC360 podcast. And this episode was sponsored by Alliance Services. And we will see you next time.
My father never stops moving, but after he had a brain aneurysm, he had a difficult time getting back to his normal routine. That's when I called Alliance Services. They paired him with Rosa. She developed a custom home care plan that helped him with his recovery.
Rosa helped me gain my independence back.
Alliance Services, helping older adults continue to live well and independent.